Welcome to Crime, Corrections, and Culture. Actually, I've changed the name now, but we still have the same thing here. It's now going to be Crime, Criminals, and Corrections. So I wanted to, just so everybody knows, we love the super chats and super stickers. I can't say that enough. But I came across a story yesterday about, the headline is Cheshire inmate, this is in Connecticut, Cheshire inmate injures 6 officers following contraband discovery at the DOC in Connecticut. So let me click on, I want to read the story so we can get a little background here. After officers found contraband in the inmate's cell around 8:50 p.m., the inmate approached 2 officers stationed in the housing unit and began striking them in the face. Additional staff members were injured as they responded to the altercation, officials said. The staff was eventually able to safely secure the inmate. The remaining 2 officers who were not hospitalized chose to stay on duty, according to the DOC. This is an active investigation. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is there's a lot of people that are in the comments, which is really what I want to go over. So somebody says, let me find the exact comment so I can read it. I can't find the exact comment. I'm sorry. Okay, no, that's a good one. We'll do that after. There was the thing is that people are saying, well, why are they saying it's alleged that maybe that was in the other one. Let me make sure. Okay, so I'm on the wrong story, but I'm not on the wrong story. I'm on the wrong app. I'm on the wrong news thing. On the other news feed, they said it was alleged. So people were wondering why it is alleged, or why they are saying it's alleged. If the 6 officers got hurt, it's not alleged. It's an assault. Okay. I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, obviously. But I'll tell you what, I don't just take the officer's word for it. No effing way. Right? 6 officers, 4 got hurt. I don't know what happened. I don't know what led up to it. Even if you see on camera, there's no way of knowing what the officers were doing, in the weeks leading up to this. You just don't know. So all the talk about, well, it's not alleged, that's just, it is alleged. You don't know yet. So the first question that I found interesting is this woman comes in and she says, why was an inmate who was found to have contraband in his cell able to approach an officer's station in the first place? So it's important to understand here. Contraband can be an extra sheet. It can be a magazine you're not supposed to have. It can be storing your coffee in a peanut butter jar would be contraband. Contraband may sound like it's this very, dangerous thing. But the bottom line is we just don't know, right? We just don't know what it is that they're having, what they have in their cell. That's the first thing. The other thing, I want to go back to some of these comments here. Click on it. Okay. Even in controlled facilities, inmates still have to be moved and handled by staff. Contact happens, it can escalate. Then somebody here says they're understaffed. That is political rhetoric, right? They are understaffed. That's propaganda that's put out there by DOC staff members so that they can try to get more pay. It's just not true. Jim is absolutely correct. Injury itself does not imply assault, and we cannot evaluate the officer's reports without looking at all the available evidence. Absolutely. So if they're injured running to the event, if they trip, if they fall, whatever. So somebody else says, sadly, The officers will be investigated to make sure they didn't break the rules, and the inmate will return to his cell to start making calls and filling out his excessive use of force lawsuit. Administrators will Administrations will make sure his pens are full of ink and he has plenty of free stamps. And somebody else jumps in. Yeah, this right here. I really just wish, I really wish that one of these prison propagandists, because it's BS what they're talking about, would sit down and debate with me. I really do, because I've had a lot of debates with some fairly prominent people. I tell you, I would relish no debate like I would relish being able to debate somebody who worked or works for the Connecticut Department of Correction. I would absolutely love that. One person, they should have tasered him. Somebody else says they should have tasered him. Yeah, I don't know. They weren't there. I wasn't there. Like I said, okay. I found the other story that I wanted to find. This is where they talked about it being alleged. So this guy comes on. He said, so if the staff was injured, that means they were assaulted, not allegedly. And somebody else says they have proof of COs arguing or lying. I don't need that. Somebody else comes in and says, not all heroes wear a cape. Okay. Again, propaganda. Somebody comes in now. This is the flip side of the coin. They don't treat inmates humanely. It doesn't justify violence, but it's true that correctional officers are often not the greatest. That's true. They're not the greatest, but I don't. When you say they're being treated inhumanely, there's a lot of legitimate criticisms of the Department of Correction. The idea that they're like torturing the inmates is not one of them, right? It doesn't mean there aren't COs that are dicks. There are. But by and large, the issue is that they do not do their jobs, right? They don't enforce the rules. They are very arbitrary. So they might be real jerks to one guy, but not to another guy, right? They might just not like a guy, so they treat him very poorly. It has nothing to do with rule enforcement. They're just being assholes. But by and large, they're just negligent. They sleep on the job, that stuff, that sort of thing. I want to see what else we have here in the hoping all the officers are doing okay. We all know how hard it is to work in a place like this. Don't judge the staff until you walk in his shoes. Okay. Sorry. No, it's not that hard to work in the Department of Corrections. It really is. It really, really isn't. They got some people that are just making terrible things. They deserve to get hurt. No, you don't deserve to get assaulted. That's part of the problem with these discussions, right? Is you have the staff and the DOC defenders talking about how they're superheroes, and you have other people talking about how they deserve to get hurt. When the reality of the situation is they're likely not heroes, and they also don't deserve to get hurt. Then there's the as a CO, these insensitive comments are beyond me. 95% of y'all can't do our job. Keep typing, cowards. Okay. No, you're wrong that 95% of people can't do your jobs. Brent McCall and I documented the COs sleeping on the job, making inappropriate comments to inmates, sexualizing discussions with inmates, warning inmates that shakedowns were coming because of contraband, correctional officers, employees stealing stuff from the DOC. It's just not true, like this woman here says, that these are insensitive comments. Well, some are insensitive, but 95% of y'all can't do our job. No, that's bullshit. That's just not true. Something tells me that I'm going to respond to her later on. I also the cowards thing. So here's another person. 6 officers got injured, but the assault is alleged. Might get an outside charge. It's just, by and large, you have people talking about things they just don't understand. COs have an awful job, and many are fantastic. Inmates demand way more than adequate treatment. You are in jail, my friend, not a hotel. Well, that's an adequate critique of inmates, certainly. But the idea that the correctional officers are doing such a hard job is just not true. Can it be dangerous? Sure. You're supervising many times killers, very violent people. Can be a dangerous job. The idea that they're in there risking their life, if they're risking their lives and they're so afraid, then why do they sleep on post? Why do they sleep on post? I've actually called news organizations that says you can check the camera this time and go look at the post. I mean, check the camera and you will see they're sleeping on their post. I don't know what you'd have to do to get access to those tapes. I know at one time the commissioner of corrections said, well, the cameras aren't pointed at the desk, so we don't know. But correctional officers, there are some of them who actually sleep on the job. They joke around. They're playing on their phones, even though they're not supposed to have phones in the facility. They come into the buildings with backpacks full of stuff. What are you doing with backpacks full of stuff? What do you need to be bringing in here? I'm reminded of during COVID when they did the story about how they were at such risk. The inmates were putting them at that risk. They're so scared and everything else. Meanwhile, mask mandates, they're not wearing masks. Social distancing, they're not social distancing. Forget about whether you think those are good policies or not. The fact of the matter is those were the policies. And they were not abiding by them. They were not doing what they were supposed to do. I documented it. On this show, Persephone and I discussed a lot of the things that they did, that they were doing. It's just not an accurate claim. I will say this till I am blue in the face, that they are doing such a hard job and they are wonderful at it. I have not met not one, 25 years in prison, I never met one correctional officer that did his job to the T. There were some better, some worse, granted, but no. Again, I once asked a correctional officer who told me that I was too critical of them because he said to me, come on, Mike, you've got to admit there's some good COs. He had been on the job 20 years. I said, okay, tell me 5. He couldn't do it. Could not name 20 years on the job, could not name 5 that did a good job. In a debate I had with a former correctional officer and a guy that trains correction staff, trains COs, he said, oh, that's just bullshit that there's not 5. I said, okay, let me ask you a question. Did you swear on the job? Yeah. Okay. There you go. You're already in violation of your directives. You're swearing on the job. You're not supposed to do that. Already, right off the bat, in violation. Okay. Have you ever seen staff members do anything unethical? Of course. I mean, some are going to do something unethical. Some of them, okay. Did you turn them in? Did you report their unethical conduct? No. I'm not going to. Well, you're duty bound to by the directive. And you're not doing that. So you and I have talked now, this guy, for 2 minutes in here, and I've already found 2 ways in which you're in violation of the directives that are touted as, they're so cutting edge in corrections. They've got professionalism, respect, integrity, dignity, and excellence. Pride is their acronym. So in this case, you had a guy had his shell taken down, and they found contraband, but nobody knows. We don't know what the contraband is. And then evidently there was an assault that took place. I preached about this 1,000 times. It's never okay to assault anybody, really. It's just not right. You don't assault people, but you don't assault staff. Even when they're jerks, you don't assault them. right? However, I will say this. If you are a correctional officer, or, well, let's just stick to correctional officers, right? And I once had a conversation with a counselor that I had a very good relationship with about this very thing. And he gave me the example. We were in the hallway talking, and he said, "Hey, Mike," he said, "give me your ID, inmate ID." And I thought he really wanted to see my ID, so I took my ID off and I handed it to him. He gave it back to me. He said, "Now watch this." He said, "Give me your ID, asshole." And he said, "You see the difference in approach? Do you see the difference in approach and how somebody is likely to respond?" Now, no matter what, I'm still in control of my behavior. But when you are talking to convicted killers, people doing life sentences, never going home, and you talk to them like that, it's a problem, right? When you are modeling unprofessional behavior on a daily basis, playing video games, talking sports all loud with the inmates, allowing your buddies out of their cells so they can go play poker, whatever it is you're doing as a correctional officer that's in violation of the directives, that's exhibiting unprofessional behavior, swearing at inmates, whatever the case may be, you're setting a bad example for people that 95% of whom are going home. So, I mean, the people that are making the comments here as if they, know exactly what happened, they don't, I don't. But I know, again, I will not take correctional officers' words for it. All right, folks, any questions? Do we have any questions? I've posted this story to my Facebook page. Maybe somebody's watched it. Maybe you haven't. But any questions about corrections? Anything you want cleared up? Anything maybe you want to challenge me on? Okay, and I am going to wrap this up a little bit early today. I'm going to follow this story, and I'm going to get more information on it, maybe from some inside sources. And tomorrow, we'll discuss it some more. Thank you all for joining me. And as always, my offer to debate DOC staff, from correctional officers, CTOs, counselors, lieutenants, captains, wardens, whatever, I'm happy to. Oh, wait a second. Before I go, I wanted to share this. I wanted to talk about this. I forgot all about it. About 10 minutes or so before, about an hour and a half before I came on the air. I was 10 minutes or so before I went on the other show. There was a story, and now it won't let me access it. I'm going to get upset. Hold on. I will find it. There it goes. Oh, a super sticker from Nicole Hingle. Thank you very, very much. DCF Brain Drain. Oh, okay. Former DOC leader found guilty in a lawsuit for evidently mistreating an inmate. It was the guy who was the commissioner of corrections while I was in there, Angel Quiros, as well as the guy who was the warden in my prison, William Mulligan. A civil rights case involving an inmate, Joe Baltus, serving a life sentence for murder, but they found he was subjected to inhumane treatment. Let me just tell you a quick story about Mr. Mulligan. So he was the warden, and I had to talk to him about something, and he was touring the facility, and he came in the block, and I said, "Warden, can I ask you a question real quick?" He said, "Sure." He said, "Hey, how'd you know I was coming?" Now, the reason I knew he was coming is because I looked out the door. I saw him. He said, "What, did the CO make the announcement?" I said, and I said, "No, but they do make those announcements. Hey, everybody, the warden's coming. Get your act together. The inmates, everybody's got to put on the show. Now we've got the warden coming around." So I told him, "Yeah, they do make those announcements, though." And the warden said to me, Warden Mulligan, who's now been found civilly liable for inhumane treatment, he said, I know they make those calls. He said, I was a CO. I used to be the one making that call. And I'm just thinking, like, this whole thing is just such a charade. The warden does a tour to make sure that everybody's doing their job, but he knows that what he's going to see is not what's going on before he got there, because he knows they're making announcements that the warden's coming. They do the same thing when the captain's coming. They do the same thing when the lieutenant's coming. They make the announcement. They all were once correctional officers, so they all know that this is the game, and yet they still play it. Similarly, when a department, when the commissioner, Angel Quiros, he used to be a correctional officer, not a commissioner anymore, but when he had once been a correctional officer, so he knows when he comes to tour a given facility that they're going to put on the dog and pony show for him. Because that's what actually occurs in prisons. Everybody puts on a show for everybody else, and everybody's aware that it's a show, and it just keeps going, and your tax dollars keep paying for it. So when it was brought to their attention in one of these threads, somebody actually said, these COs, a lot of them are corrupt. They bring in drugs. They're mistreating the inmates. And someone says, oh, well. And I just said to the guy, okay, so you're okay with being ripped off to pay for a corrupt and ineffective system? I haven't gotten a response. Okay, now I'm really going to go. I thank you all for joining me. I thank you for the comments. I thank you for the super sticker, Nicole Hingle. Thank you very much. And I hope to see you back here tomorrow on the Rational Alternative channel for crime, criminals, and corrections. Thank you very much.